Good morning, everyone. Someone once said you should be so positive that negative people can't stand being around you. In this week's Torah portion, the Torah says, Eish Tamid, a perpetual continuous flame, Tukad ala mizbeach, shall burn on the altar. Lo tichbe, it should never be extinguished. The Torah says that the fire on the altar had to burn continuously. And the question is, the verse seems to be repetitive. First it says, a continuous perpetual flame should burn on the altar. But then it says it should not be extinguished. Well, obviously, if it's perpetual and continuous, it will not be extinguished. And a beautiful Hasidic interpretation to this is as follows. The word lo means it should not be extinguished. But lo could also mean no or negativity. And what the verse is saying is, how do you drive out negativity from your life? Eish tamid tukad al mizbeach. If you have a perpetual, continuous fire, a fire of love and passion, love for God, love for your fellow man, burning on your inner altar, on the fire of your heart and your soul, there's a fire, a passion of love, then lo, all the lows, all the negative aspects of your life, kama tichbe, will be extinguished. The positivity and the love will drive away and dispel anything that is negative. Eli Bier, the founder of United Hatzalah in Israel, tells a beautiful story. He had this religious Jew from Jerusalem who was a volunteer for United Hatzalah. And he was also, for a job, worked for a poultry company delivering chickens in Jerusalem. One Friday afternoon, he has a truck full of deliveries. When he gets a Hatzalah call, someone was hit by a car. He rushes to the scene, goes out, and spends 40 minutes caring for the victim until the ambulance came and took them away. When he got back to his truck, he saw he had 9 missed calls from his boss. He calls his boss is furious, says, "Where are you? Customers are calling, they're waiting for the deliveries, it's right before Shabbat." He says, "I had a call, somebody was hit by a car, I went to save someone's life." He says, "Okay, go deliver all the chickens." When he finishes the deliveries, he comes back to the company. His boss says, "You're fired." He says, "I'm fired, why?" He says, "Because I can't run a business like this. You're running off to save lives, which is wonderful, but meanwhile my clients are calling me and I'm going to lose customers." He says, "How could you fire me for saving a life?" He says, "Find someone else to work for, but I can't support this." This fellow called Eli Bier, completely dejected. He said, "What am I going to do? I lost my job." Eli said, "Sunday morning I'm going to come talk to your boss." He comes to the boss. He says, "How could you do this? Fire a Jew who went to save a life?" He said, "With all due respect, you hire him. I can't have him working in the business and ruining my business during my hours. He can't do this." So Eli Bier says, "Well, let's go to a rabbi to resolve this." He went to Rabbi Wozner in Jerusalem. He heard the case, and he ruled that halachically, legally, the boss is right. He's entitled to have a worker who works from 9 to 5 and doesn't go off to do other things, no matter how noble and righteous they are. Eli Bier was very sad to hear that, and the boss felt vindicated. But as they were about to leave, the rabbi, who was very wise, called them back. And it was Eli, the rabbi, and the boss. Rabbi Wozner turned to the boss of the chicken company, and he said, "Tell me, have you ever saved a life in your life?" He said, "No." He said, "I'm not a doctor, and I'm afraid of seeing blood, so I don't volunteer for Hatzalah. I've never saved a life." He said, "Do you know how great the mitzvah is?" He says, "Yeah, it's the greatest mitzvah. If you saved a life, it's like you saved an entire world in Judaism." So the rabbi says to the boss, "How about if we make an agreement? If we make an agreement with your employee that every time he saves a life, you get 50% of the mitzvah." The boss said, "Wow, 50% of the mitzvah for every life saved? That's an offer I can't refuse. I guess I would agree to keep him as an employee." But then the employee said, "I should give away 50% of my mitzvah?" And then Rabbi Wozner said to the employee, "Listen, some mitzvahs are so big that you could afford to split it, because it's like an ocean. Half of the ocean's water is enough. You could give him 50%. So they agreed, and Rabbi started to write a contract between the boss and the employee that every time he goes during his work to save a life, the boss gets 50% of the mitzvah. At that point, the boss said, "What about the lives he saves during non-work hours, on weekends?" after hours. The employee says, well, that's my mitzvah. And the boss said, yeah, but I support you with the livelihood. I should get that mitzvah too. And they started arguing in front of the rabbi if they should split the mitzvah of the life save after hours. And finally they agreed. During hours, it's 50-50. After hours, it's 30-70. And they wrote a contract and everyone signed it. And everyone walked away happy. Sometimes when we have conflicts, when we have negativity, toxicity in our lives, it's because we're focusing on the negativity. If we come with love, if we come with positivity, if we focus on what's good, if we see the glass that's half full, then automatically the low, all the negative aspects, the tension, the conflict is all driven away automatically.